We're picking up a strong signal. It's heading to the surface. Is this Godzilla? We cannot determine whether it is the same Godzilla as in our records. What does Godzilla want? Oh no, not the generator.
It must be the G-energy generator. It's the only explanation as to why he chose to come ashore in this area. We discovered G-energy because of him, but it turns out the stuff is his favorite meal.
Maybe Godzilla holds a grudge.
Hey guys, welcome to Replay Factor.
Forgive me. I spoke out.
Today you are watching the very first episode of Godzilla Talks. That's right, he talks. Well, not literally, but this is a show about Godzilla doing his thing, and the talks part of the show is actually me doing the talking. And on this episode, I'd like to talk about Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Sr. possibly, but let's focus on Jr. first, versus Conor McGregor. What do you guys think? Is that ever gonna happen? Certainly the talks seem to have been picking up steam over the last few weeks, although actually more recently talks sort of have died down, because a couple of weeks ago, or maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, it seems like the announcement was basically inevitable. You know, you have both sides talking. You have Floyd Mayweather Jr. Talking trash against Conor McGregor. You have Conor McGregor talking trash against Floyd Mayweather Jr. And all these talks that, you know, there's going to be this announcement coming up shortly. And that was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, like I said. But so far, there has been no announcement. You know, you have Conor McGregor continuing to talk trash and taunting Floyd, and basically saying that, you know what, in a real fight, pro boxers, and I'm sure he's alluding to Floyd Mayweather there, do not have the tools to keep themselves alive in a real fight. And I would sort of agree with that if that real fight happens to involve an MMA fighter. Of course, this brings back, you know, the years-old debate now of who's going to win between an MMA fighter and a pro boxer. And the short answer to that is it depends on who the boxer is, and it depends on who the MMA fighter is. You know, I mean, there's so many variables there. You can't really make a prediction between any random fighter whose skill sets are a mystery to all of us. You know, you can't just say a generic MMA fighter versus a generic boxer, because, you know, you have to first define what a generic boxer is versus a generic MMA fighter. I mean, they come in all shapes and sizes. Even in a sport like boxing, where the skill set required is so limited compared to MMA, you know, there's still a huge difference between, you know, a Floyd Mayweather Jr. and an Arturo Gatti. So, you know, so anyway, you know, you have Conor McGregor taunting professional boxers, saying that they, you know, they won't live through a real street fight, I'm presuming, against Conor McGregor. He's probably referring to himself, or maybe the top MMA fighters out there. That could be true. So I don't really know why McGregor's saying that. I don't know if he's really aiming that at Floyd Mayweather Jr. I mean, it seems like he is. I mean, why else would he take digs at pro boxers? So there's been a lot of talks going. Everybody's talking. Everybody wants to, you know, put their 2 cents in, including myself. But everybody's nobody's really giving Conor McGregor any chances against Floyd Mayweather Jr. in a pro boxing match, and understandably so. But for the record, I am not one of those guys who think that McGregor doesn't stand a chance against Floyd Mayweather Jr. in a boxing match. You know, you have a lot of people saying that he doesn't, and I really don't understand that. I really don't understand that. See, the thing of it is, this isn't the same exact situation as CM Punk, you know, joining the UFC for the very first time. He's had no real fights ever as an amateur or professional, and I don't think he even trains in any form of martial art. It's not a case of you know, some athlete coming from a completely different sport crossing over to boxing. You know, the thing is, Conor McGregor is a professional athlete. Not only that, he's a professional fighter. You know, it's not like he's crossing over from tennis or even football, challenging Floyd Mayweather Jr. You know, McGregor has some amateur background as a boxer. I heard. I don't think I've actually ever seen any footage of McGregor in an amateur boxing match. But regardless, the guy is a fighter. He trains like a fighter, and everybody knows that, you know, the training regimen of an MMA fighter, especially the top fighters, you know, are far more, I don't know, far more intense than any pro boxer's training regimen. And, you know, of course, he trains boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and all that. And the thing is, he knows how to box. McGregor knows how to box. It's not like he's never laced on a pair of boxing gloves in his life. We've seen him spar. You know, everybody says that he looks bad doing what he's doing. I don't think he does. But he's not a novice when it comes to fighting, you know. And that's the biggest thing. The first thing that any athlete has to overcome when they try to cross over to the sport of boxing is the fighting aspect of it. You know, you have to have the mentality. You know, what are you going to do when you get hit? And do you have it in you to inflict violence on your foe? You know, what kind of balance will you have when you're throwing punches? Are you going to go crazy? And as we all know, McGregor is one of the best pure strikers in MMA. Well, he's not exactly a pure striker, but, you know, in his last few fights, he's basically just relied on his knockout power and his ability to just land the perfect strike. McGregor, he knocks people out, that's for sure, but I wouldn't consider him a knockout artist at all, not even close. I mean, an artist maybe, yeah, well, what I mean by not being a knockout artist is he's not a heavy-handed slugger like, you know, say Anthony Johnson. You know, that guy, he just wings like George Foreman. I think Anthony Johnson is almost like, you know, the George Foreman of MMA. He has such heavy hands, and he hurts people with glancing shots, and that's one of the things that made George Foreman so fearsome in his prime, is that, you know, he can hurt you with glancing shots. He doesn't need to be precise like Mike Tyson. He doesn't need perfect timing. He just basically swings his arms around, and if you happen to be anywhere in his path, then you're going to get hit. I mean, you're going to get hurt and possibly knocked out. He has such heavy hands, and that's what made him so scary. Conor McGregor is not that type of fighter. His knockouts have been the result of perfect timing and his ability to read his opponent's movements. People make fun of Conor McGregor's movement exercises. They call it the touch butt thing. Actually, I don't know why they call it that. I haven't actually seen the video that in which McGregor was touching butts. Have you guys seen that at all? I haven't. But you know, Conor McGregor, you know, he's something else. people tend to underestimate his counter-punching abilities and his timing. And actually, I'm just looking over the more recent articles that involve Conor McGregor. I think the most recent guy who said anything about McGregor was Antonio Tarver. And, you know, that's another has-been boxer that never really was anything great. You know, had his moment of glory against Roy Jones Jr. But, whatever. If you know, if you want to get into the headlines these days, especially if you're a has-been athlete that nobody really cares about, the quickest way for you to make it to the headlines is by mentioning Conor McGregor. And Antonio Tarver did just that. And I read that he's going to be some sort of trainer now for MMA, I guess just for the boxing aspect of it. I guess that sort of makes sense. But he says that Conor McGregor can't beat Nick Diaz in a boxing match, and he has no chance of beating Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match. You know, I disagree on both statements. First off, McGregor absolutely trashed Nate Diaz on the stand-up, during the stand-up. Even in the first fight that he lost, you know, McGregor's just way too sharp for Diaz, too strong, too quick, too accurate, and which is why Diaz had to, you know, take it to the ground. Well, I know that it was McGregor who tried to take it to the ground in the first time, but we all know that he gassed out in that fight. Big difference from the first Diaz fight and the second Diaz fight. McGregor was just winging his punches in the very first match and just swinging for defenses, and didn't want to conserve his stamina at all. He probably overestimated his power, and he paid for it dearly. And Diaz was able to capitalize, and because McGregor was wobbling around, because he was already gassed out, you know, when you're gassed, your ability to absorb a punch is not the same as when you are fresh. And Diaz tagged him, and you know, McGregor got rocked. You know, he got hurt. But the thing of it was, before he gassed, you know, he was thoroughly dominating Nick Diaz on their feet. And Conor McGregor haters just tend to deny that. And you know, if the first match wasn't proof enough, in the second match, Conor McGregor absolutely outclassed Nate Diaz during the stand-up, and you know, knocked him down 3 times. And Nate Diaz tried to play it off, saying that he did that on purpose to try to lure Conor McGregor to the ground. I think on the third knockdown, or was it the third knockdown? I don't remember how many times McGregor knocked Diaz down. It was 2 or 3 times, I think. But I think on the very last knockdown that McGregor scored over Nate Diaz, I do believe that Diaz faked that knockdown. But I don't think he faked it to try to lure McGregor to the ground. But I think it was Nate Diaz just trying to make it obvious that he just faked that knockdown to suggest that all the other knockdowns were the same way. You know, I'm not buying any of that. The other 2 knockdowns that McGregor scored over him, you know, were completely legit. And Diaz was just trying to be a hater and trying to show everyone, hey, look, see, I faked this knockdown just like the other 2. But that's a bunch of bull. Conor McGregor legitimately dropped Nate Diaz twice during their rematch. And so my point is, no, Antonio Tarver, you are completely wrong about McGregor not being able to outbox Nate Diaz, because he did twice. So you don't know what you're talking about, and I hope you do great on your endeavor as an MMA trainer. Hopefully you're not training people how to wrestle, but hopefully you are training people on how to get lucky, because you're pretty good at that. Anyway, so back to McGregor, Floyd Mayweather Jr. I think people are beginning to lose interest in the fight. because I think we are at a standstill. Somebody from Showtime mentioned something to that extent, that the negotiations are basically stalled right now, and who knows what's going on, who knows whose fault it is. But I think that it'd actually be a very, very entertaining fight if it were to happen. And I think Mayweather's got the most to lose in this fight, obviously. But the thing about Mayweather is he never fights anyone unless the odds are heavily in his favor. We've seen that in a bunch of his fights. Even Manny Pacquiao, he had to wait, I don't know, 3 or 4 years to finally agree to fight Manny Pacquiao. He had to wait till Pacquiao got knocked out, and until it was really obvious that Manny Pacquiao didn't have the same work rate as he did when he was in his prime, back in around 2009, 2011. Between 2009 and 2011 is, I would say that was Manny Pacquiao's prime. And during all that time, we all know about the whole steroid allegations that Mayweather threw out there. Completely no evidence. Pacquiao never failing a drug test, and we all know the story. I don't want to rehash it because I've heard it way too many times. But the thing of it is, Mayweather is not going to fight anyone that he thinks has a legitimate chance of beating him. He took a chance with Pacquiao. Some people believe that Pacquiao actually won that match. I wouldn't say that Pacquiao won the fight against Mayweather, but I think it was definitely a lot closer than the scorecards would suggest. A lot of people have posted a lot of videos, slow motion videos, showing the punch counts between Pacquiao and Mayweather, and it proves that Pacquiao actually outlanded Floyd Mayweather Jr. But regardless, Mayweather likes to play it safe, and nobody's giving Conor McGregor a chance. And on paper, it looks like it's easy money for Floyd Mayweather Jr. You have a guy, a complete novice when it comes to pro boxing. But I think Mayweather may be shaken by Conor McGregor's self-confidence. The thing about McGregor is he's a great talker, probably the best talker we've ever seen since Muhammad Ali. And there's just something convincing about the way he talks. I mean, he's entertaining, he's funny, but when you the way McGregor talks is he seems like he really believes the stuff that he's saying, and he just gets under your skin. And I think Conor McGregor has gotten under Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s skin, and I think Mayweather's thinking twice about this whole thing. I think because the first time, the first time people started talking about McGregor and Mayweather, I mean, it seems like, hey, Mayweather's thinking, this is so easy for me. I can make $100 million easy and have no chance of losing against this MMA fighter. But I think since then, Mayweather has sat down and started really paying attention to Conor McGregor's fights and his victories and how he was able to achieve those knockouts. And Conor McGregor, he's not a little guy. He's not the biggest guy, but he is bigger than Floyd Mayweather Jr. And if you just take a look at it for a second, Mayweather fights exactly 2 types of opponents, and no more than 2 types of opponents. Okay, number 1, smaller guys. Number 2, considerably slower guys. So Mayweather won't fight you unless you are smaller than him or significantly slower than him. The biggest guys he fought, Oscar de la Hoya was definitely slower. Diego Corrales was slower. Carlos Baldomir was slower. Manny Pacquiao, not slower, probably faster, but definitely smaller. And objective viewers know that fight is much closer than the scorecards would suggest. And even Mayweather himself admits that Manny Pacquiao is one of the best fighters he has ever fought. Now, the other quick guy that Mayweather fought was Shane Mosley. Mosley wasn't wasn't smaller than him, and wasn't smaller than him. Of course, he was almost 40 at the time and hasn't fought for about a year and a half. So, excuse me. Anyway, stupid alarm went off. Excuse me if you heard that. So, Shane Mosley, not smaller than Mayweather, not slower than Mayweather, but almost 40 at that time. I think he was 38 or 39, but more importantly, he hasn't fought for about a year and a half when Mayweather fought him. And when you're at 38, 39 years old, ring rust, makes a world of difference. And Mayweather knew that, so he took the chance to face Shane Mosley after ducking him for how many years? 5, 6, 7 years at that point. And we all saw what happened there. Mosley almost knocked out Floyd Mayweather Jr. in the second round. But all credit to Mayweather Jr. I think that was, in spite of that second round scare, I think that was one of the best performances I've ever seen from Floyd Mayweather Jr. He showed that he can be a tough guy, that he can dig deep. He almost got knocked out almost, and he dug deep and almost knocked out, well, no, he didn't almost knock out Shane Mosley, but he did dominate him for the rest of the fight, and pot-shotted him and hit him with combinations. Basically Mayweather got mad in that fight. I don't think I've ever seen him actually mad in a fight except for Victor Ortiz, the guy he sucker punched to score that knockout. But here, I actually saw a little bit of Tiger from Floyd Mayweather Jr., and that's something that I don't normally give him credit for. I don't see Mayweather as what you would call a real fighter. He's just a safety first, boring kind of guy. But against Shane Mosley, he showed that he does have it in him. But still, he's still a safety first fighter. So anyway, back to my original point. Conor McGregor is not smaller than Floyd Mayweather Jr. And he's more athletic than Floyd Mayweather Jr. You just have to assume that, because of his MMA training, and we've seen him fight, we know what he's capable of doing physically. And as far as speed is concerned, I don't think Conor McGregor has the same kind of hand speed as Mayweather, but he's fast enough to be able to time you and make up for the speed difference because of his long reach. And he just knows how to catch people. He's not going to be a slow, plodding guy like Carlos Baldomir or Canelo Alvarez or a washed-up Oscar De La Hoya. So he's going to be a problem. And let's not forget his power. He is a powerful dude. He's knocked people out, knocked bigger guys down like Nate Diaz. You got to remember when Nate Diaz fought Conor McGregor, he was close to 200 pounds, maybe 190 pounds or so, and that's a big dude, facing off against a guy who normally weighs in at around 145, McGregor. I know that his natural weight is probably closer to the 155, 160 range, but still, Nate Diaz is almost a 200-pound guy, and McGregor just traded with him. He slugged with him, and even though he slugged with him, Nate Diaz really didn't touch Conor McGregor, at least not in the second fight. And the only way you can touch him is if you sort of wrestle and grapple him, and he sort of got him towards the latter part of that fight. But my point is, McGregor is an excellent stand-up striker, and Mayweather realizes this, and maybe he's thinking, you know what, this guy's not going to be the pushover I originally thought he was going to be. So I better think this through before I sign that contract, okay? So what kind of stuff can I throw in there to stack the odds a little more in my favor, Mayweather's thinking. Well, the first thing is, what weight class are they going to fight in? I think Mayweather's going to push for that 147-pound limit, because we all know how scary McGregor looks. And when by scary, I mean like an AIDS patient or a cancer patient. When he weighed in at 145 last, he basically had no flesh left. He looked like a skeleton. He really did. And that was at 145. I wouldn't be surprised if Mayweather pushed for a 145-pound weight limit in a boxing match against Conor McGregor. I think that's probably one of the stipulations. I don't know. But, you know, 147, I'm thinking that's what Mayweather is going to go for, because he knows that McGregor is going to have to, like, basically kill himself to make that weight. You know, he hasn't weighed in less than 170, you know, for what, over a year and a half? I don't know. But coming back down from weighing 170 to having to weigh 147, 145 all over again, you know, that's going to take a toll on McGregor's physicality and power and overall strength. And now I'd be shocked if Mayweather agrees to some sort of catch weight like 150. I think 150 would be a good, almost fair catch weight for the fight to be held at. 154 is the ideal. Mayweather has been the 154-pound champion, so there's no reason for him to fight at a catch weight against McGregor, who naturally weighs closer to 160, 165. So to make McGregor have to drop down to 147, I think that's the first sign of weakness on Mayweather's part, because I don't see, to me that tells me that Mayweather is not that confident that he can still beat Conor McGregor, at least not as easily as he once thought. You got to remember that Mayweather Jr. is going to be 40 years old. I think, is he 40 years old already? Yeah, he's 40, I think. And yeah, I'm pretty sure he's 40. Not only that, he hasn't fought for over a year. And if, let's say, the fight does get signed and does take place in September, okay? A lot of people are thinking it's going to be September. You know, it's not going to be June anymore. We're already at the month of May, so no way is the fight going to be in June, as originally speculated by a lot of fans. We're probably looking at September at the absolute earliest. So if it takes place in September of this year, 2017, that means it would have been, what, 2 years since Mayweather last fought. Now, this would have been the longest inactivity in Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s career since he, quote-unquote, retired the first time, when he was trying to avoid a prime Miguel Cotto, Antonio Margarito, and Paul Williams. But let's not go there right now. But back then, Mayweather was, what, in his early 30s. So it's different when you retire, or, you know, take some time off of professional boxing when you're in your early 30s. It's a whole other thing when you're 40 years old and haven't fought for 2 years. It doesn't matter if you're a gym rat or if you're having secret gym wars with sparring partners. You know, it's not the same thing. And you know, Mayweather has to be considering that part of the equation as well. So he knows that while it might take the perfect storm for McGregor to score an upset victory over him, that perfect storm might actually be happening. You know, you got Mayweather who's in his absolute physical prime, supremely confident. And he's not going to be intimidated by Floyd Mayweather Jr. A lot of people are intimidated by Mayweather Jr.'s aura, his stature in sports and in society, because of how rich he is and he's the big deal. But the thing about Mayweather Jr., he does his talking in the ring. Or at least the most interesting talking anyway. And he does it with his fists. But outside the ring, Mayweather sounds kind of illiterate. He's not the wittiest guy. And you know, he tries to be a little low-key during the press conferences, but I don't think it's by design. It's because, you know, he doesn't really have that much to say. But not Conor McGregor. He has plenty to say, and he's a very, very, very articulate guy. And he really gets in his opponent's head. He says the craziest things, funniest things, and he really makes his opponents look stupid. And I think Floyd Mayweather Jr. might not be prepared for that kind of humiliation during the press conferences, because you know Mayweather's used to being the man, the star during these press conferences, these press tours. But if he's fighting Conor McGregor, McGregor's gonna make a chump out of Floyd Mayweather Jr. Now when they step into the ring, it might all change and Mayweather might dominate McGregor. That's fine, but anything before that, there's absolutely no doubt that Conor McGregor will destroy Floyd Mayweather Jr. during the conferences, and just he'll know what to say. He'll know the kind of things that will irritate Mayweather and just make him look foolish. You know, McGregor is an expert at that, and I think that that's one of the things that Mayweather is really considering when he's trying to decide on whether or not he should fight Conor McGregor. I really think that Mayweather is afraid of Conor McGregor's trash talk when they're in front of the press. You know, I think Mayweather's he's gonna try to play the quiet man when during these press conferences, and let McGregor, you know, quote unquote, make a fool out of himself. And but you know what? McGregor's gonna have fun during these conferences, and Mayweather knows it. And I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all if part of the contract agreements will be for Conor McGregor to keep the trash talk to a minimum, or to for McGregor to abstain from saying certain things about Mayweather. I wouldn't be surprised at all, and I think that would be the first time in history where we would see something like that in the contract. But I think that Mayweather is so scared of McGregor's trash talk that he's probably gonna forbid him to talk any trash during the press conferences. I think that's going to be part of the contract agreement, and if that's the case, then I think that'd be too bad, because I think that's going to be even more entertaining than the fight, if the fight unfolds the way most people are expecting it to be, which is for Mayweather to just run away with an easy decision. But I'm not really sold on that. I really am not. I think that the perfect storm is brewing, and if both fighters step into the ring, that people will be really, really surprised of how well McGregor is going to handle himself inside that ring. You know, just being the bigger guy, being the more athletic guy, already goes a long way towards McGregor's favor. Because, like I said, it's not something that Mayweather is used to. It's actually something that's never experienced before. Fighting someone who's younger, bigger, more athletic, and probably can match him in speed, or at least neutralize some of that speed because of an intelligent use of his size, which is what McGregor is known for. McGregor, he's handled a bunch of smaller guys similar to Floyd's stature, and you know, and against Diaz, obviously we've seen him, you know, against bigger guys, and he's able to adjust. McGregor was able to tag Diaz almost at will during the stand-up, and you're talking about Diaz, who, you know, who's taller than McGregor, longer than McGregor, lanky, and McGregor had no problem finding a home for that vaunted straight left hand of his. And that's another thing, straight left hand. He's a southpaw. I know that people have been saying for years that, you know, McGregor or Mayweather has trouble with southpaws, you know, but he's beaten every southpaw, at least, you know, officially, that he has ever fought. But so what would be different against McGregor? Well, the difference with McGregor is that he's more athletic than anybody that Mayweather has ever fought. Oh, who's coming here? And like I said, he is a very underrated counterpuncher. He's long, and another thing about Mayweather's style is he doesn't have the kind of style that would give a novice like Conor McGregor a lot of trouble. I think if you want McGregor to get really beaten up in a boxing match, he needs to fight someone who's a little more active in the ring, throws more punches, an in-fighter, a slugger. Those are the kind of things that will give novice boxers a lot of trouble. Those who fight on the inside, throws hooks and uppercuts, and not afraid to bang heads and dig to the body. Mayweather doesn't do any of that. He likes to fight at a very, very comfortable pace, 30, 35 punches per round. And that's exactly the kind of pace that McGregor needs to operate. I mean, he's kind of similar to Mayweather in that sense. McGregor doesn't throw a whole lot of punches during the fights. Well, yeah, he throws kicks and other stuff, but you know, he's not there just slugging, winging his punches. You know, he waits for his opponents to make his move and counters with that left hand. And with Floyd's low punch output, he's going to give Conor McGregor plenty of chances to play the counter punching game. And that's another thing that Floyd Mayweather's probably realized recently, which is why these negotiations have stalled for the time being. So if you would have asked me about a month ago if I thought that the fight was going to happen, I would have told you yes, but now I really don't think it's going to happen anymore, because I think that McGregor's going to beat Mayweather if they ever fought. And I think Mayweather realizes that too, which is why he's not going to allow this fight to happen. And at the end of the day, he's going to play the blame game. He's going to say that he offered Conor McGregor X amount of dollars and McGregor wouldn't agree to that because he's really afraid. We've heard it all from Floyd Mayweather before. He said it about other fighters, and his fans believe whatever he says, so he's probably going to say the same thing about McGregor, and his fan base, or Mayweather's fan base, probably going to buy into that. But I really do want to see that fight happen, because I think that Mayweather is going to end up being 49-1 at the end of that night. So what do you think, guys? Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts. You're watching Replay Factor. I want to thank every single one of you, and there is none of you right now, but hopefully you guys will see this later.